From West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
At the Legislature today, lawmakers hear about the budget considerations of the State Bureau for Senior Services. As West Virginians get older, the challenges for providing for the growing population becomes more difficult. And more tonight about the Department of Education and the Arts. It's a combination of small agencies doing a big job with tight budgets. And we'll learn more about the issues relating to economic development tonight on the Legislature Today.
A man who trains minors was sentenced today to 6 months in prison for lying to investigators with the Federal Mine Safety and Health Administration. 57-year-old Raymond Dawson eventually admitted to officials that he did not give required training to miners employed by a contractor working at the Brooks Run Mining Company. After his release from prison, Dawson will be on supervised release for 3 years. Mine safety is a major issue at this legislative session. Governor Tomlin's proposal for new mine safety laws have been introduced in the House and Senate. Speaker Rick Thompson, the son of a coal miner who died in a Wayne County mine before he was born, has been introduced legislation in the House.
Both bills reflect the findings of the various investigations into the causes of the Upper Big Branch mine disaster in 2010. Today, Joe Main, the U.S. Assistant Secretary of Labor for Mine Health and Safety, addressed those findings at the West Virginia Coal Symposium in Charleston.
We do have to change the kind of culture that we found at Upper Big Branch to one of a respect for miner safety, a respect for the law, and the implementation of sound health and safety programs that are implemented every day, and a find and fix program that's ongoing. And one thing that we all know, that the progress that we make can disappear at the snap of a finger if we take our attention away from it.
In his State of the State address, the governor announced that, like Virginia and Kentucky, West Virginia should make sure its mines are drug-free. His bill requires mine operators to conduct substance abuse screenings. Maine said that's not the focus in mine safety legislation on Capitol Hill.
That's an authority that states have, and they can move forward with that, but that's not in the current Mine Act, nor was it, I don't believe, at least the legislation that moved forward that we provided technical assistance to.
Speaker Thompson's bill does not contain any drug testing proposals. Both bills provide penalties for advance notice of a mine safety inspection. Maine insists, whether on the state or federal level, this provision will change the culture of mine safety.
We got to give miners a better voice so they feel more free about exercising their right to protect themselves without fear, without retribution, without some retaliatory actions. This advance notice issue, we've got to make it clear to everyone, you can't do that. An inspection is to audit the performance of what you're doing, not to be used to hide things that you're doing. The ability for us to get information when we do run into problems, and as most folks know, we had to rely on the state of West Virginia for subpoena authority during our Upper Big Branch investigation because we didn't have it. And those in the industry who make a decision that they're going to engage in practices and actions that violate the law and place miners at risk, we need to increase the penalties. And there's been discussions about increasing criminal penalties under the Mine Act.
Bills to improve mine safety in West Virginia are still in the House and Senate Judiciary Committees.
The House of Delegates this morning passed Senate Bill 165, which creates a criminal offense of sexual contact on incarcerated persons by correctional employees. The vote in the House was 99-0. That bill now goes back to the Senate. However, a bill relating to services to children with autism that was passed last year is still being debated this year.
Kanawha County Democrat Mark Hunt told lawmakers that insurance companies such as Blue Cross Blue Shield are not honoring the bill that's supposed to provide insurance coverage for behavioral therapy for these children. Hunt took his anger to the floor today to talk about his own son who has autism.
It's already too late for my son. My son is where he is. My son will never be self-sufficient. Now, my wife is 10 years younger than me, and thank God for that, because when I die, I think that I know there's going to be at least 10 more years that someone's going to take care of my son, that he won't be cold and hungry, and he'll be able to make the right decisions. Because my son, however high functioning and able to speak and write, and he goes to school every day, if we were giving him to his own devices, he'd play video games 24 hours a day and not eat. We have to tell him, it's time to eat.
House Bill 4260, to clean up the autism bill passed during the 2011 regular session, was passed unanimously by the House Judiciary Committee today. It heads to the House Finance Committee. The bill clarifies evaluation of autism is to be covered by insurance companies.
House Finance Committee budget hearings continue today with the Bureau of Senior Services. As Adam Cavalier reports, Medicaid dominates the organization's budget, but it's in-home care that's the concern of both legislators and Bureau officials.
Medicaid takes up nearly half of the Bureau of Senior Services' $91 million budget. All in-home services and meal delivery account for another 30%, or roughly $28 million. Bureau Director Robert Roswell says West Virginia's aging population makes it a challenge to provide for everybody.
We're working now on trying to make sure everybody's cost allocated and everybody's making the best efficient use of their funds. But even with that, the demand is just increasing constantly. It's West Virginia's aging population, and it's the boomers are deciding that they're going to get old.
Roswell told lawmakers that some of the in-home services the Bureau offers have wait lists. West Virginia's population is the second oldest in the nation behind Florida. Preston County Democrat and Finance Committee member Larry Williams says that aging population makes the Bureau all the more important.
It will be our duties to help them fund it and be able to continue. The demand's going to be there, and the way I look at it, and I attempted to do this when some of that job creation money came in a few years ago, to put that money towards training and getting more people interested in going into that type of field to provide those services. And it's going to be an industry unto itself.
Last year, the Bureau provided more than 1 million hours of care. Harrison County Democrat Richard Iaquinta says he's always searching for ways to expand the care seniors get.
You can tell an awful lot about how a state treats its elderly people, and we're doing a better job, but there's a lot of places that we can really help these people, and anytime that we have extra funds and anytime that we feel that we will reach a greater majority of our population, I'm all in favor of it.
Finance Committee Vice Chair Tom Campbell says he has an elderly mother who was harassed by solicitors.
I think the biggest problem is that we have seniors, and that's what I found with my mom, good caring person, didn't realize she was being taken advantage of, and I didn't either. So, and she has her master's degree, I'm educated. There are people that maybe not have as many resources, and I feel like she was taken advantage of, and there are other people that are probably in the same boat. So I think for the state perspective, we need to get the word out that the Bureau can help, the Attorney General can help, and here's who you call.
That's precisely the direction in which Roswell says he wants to take the Bureau.
I want a senior to know that they can call one location and get their answer, or they can go anywhere in the state and someone can help them find that answer. That it's not information that we want to control. We want to make sure it's out there and anybody that needs it gets it. That's the first priority. The second would be is find a way to try to serve all the people we can.
In fiscal year 2011, the Bureau delivered 1.4 million meals to seniors' homes. Those services go to a client base where 1 out of every 5 clients lives below the poverty line.
I'm an advocate of the more care that we can provide our seniors in their home base, the better off this state is. And Meals on Wheels, all these programs, we're trying to reach the segment of population that is in the rural areas. And they put in a lot of miles and time, and the volunteers are just fantastic.
It's something that I've experienced myself, is that seniors sometimes they're by themselves, they don't fix food, they don't eat. So food, some simple caring of simple needs that they just can't do anymore. We have a lot of people in our 80s, a lot in their 90s, proud West Virginians, and so I hope we can do the best we can for them.
The Bureau serves more than 150,000 seniors annually, 48% of whom are 75 or older. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Adam Cavalier in Charleston.
West Virginia's Department of Education and the Arts does not include the Department of Education. As such, its budget is a tiny fraction of the nearly $2 billion the state spends on public schools. But as Bob Brunner reports, the small budgets have strong advocates.
The Senate Finance Committee heard these small agencies with dwindling support defend their importance. Cabinet Secretary Kay Goodwin says all are essential to our state's quality of life.
The common mission of each division of our department is to collaborate to ensure fruitful and promising opportunities for your constituents. Aside from the daily tasks of the divisions, each boasts unique and beneficial programs.
The Center for Professional Development provides additional training for teachers and students, helping 40,000 youngsters with financial aid or vocational training. The Educational Broadcasting Authority just added its 10th radio station with an 11th on the way and is improving television signals in the southern and central parts of the state. And all this while support is diminishing.
Over the past 3 years, we have made many adjustments to compensate for the reduction in state appropriation, just as all other state agencies have done. We've absorbed these reductions, which was 6% in 2010, 1% in 2011, and a flat budget in 2012. However, when you also consider the decrease in private dollars due to the poor economy, you can see we cannot absorb much more and continue our current standard of quality services.
The Secretary of the State Library Commission says the 175 public libraries in the state have strong state support, but few local dollars. Sue Goff says libraries are crucial.
People who have low literacy are statistically more likely to be involved in crime. How much does the community gain from an adult who learns how to use the computer at the library or finds a job? These results happen every day in every library in West Virginia. They provide the answer to the question, are libraries essential?
The Commissioner of Culture and History told lawmakers about a half-dozen programs his agency spearheads, from history contests to Civil War memorials to bringing thousands of youngsters to the new State Museum. And Randall Reed Smith says it's the biggest bargain we have.
We do this while gratefully receiving 27 1/100ths of 1% of the state's $4 billion, $523,600,000 budget. We are a great investment. We are a good team.
The acting director of the Division of Rehabilitative Services, Donna Ashworth, says the state gets back $19 for every dollar invested in her agency because they are putting people back to work.
For every dollar we spend, it comes back singularly, triply, and then whatever 19% is. We would like to thank you for our budget. We certainly support the governor's budget. We are glad that the budget is not cut because we do receive federal funds at 79%.
So the Department of Education and the Arts is a tiny fraction of the budget, but makes some very spirited presentations to the Senate.
Budget hearings will largely conclude in the next 10 days, leaving the Finance Committee another 10 days to submit its version of the overall budget to the full Senate. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Bob Brunner in Charleston.
Another look at some economic development issues coming up. First, here's a look at some of the bills introduced in the Senate today. Among the bills introduced in the Senate today, Senate Bill 485 to require the creation of a Fiscal and Policy Division under the Joint Committee on Government and Finance to provide accurate information on the fiscal and policy implications of proposed legislation. Senate Bill 489 to limit health insurance coverage for elective abortions to coverage provided through supplemental policies. Senate Bill 490 to make trademark counterfeiting a crime. Senate Bill 496 to modify the Department of Environmental Protection's requirements to inventory emissions of greenhouse gases and eliminate unneeded provisions. It allows reporting of greenhouse gases under the United States Environmental Protection Agency's mandatory reporting of greenhouse gases rule to satisfy greenhouse gas reporting requirements in West Virginia.
Senate Bill 507 at the request of the Supreme Court of Appeals to amend the code relating to the ability of certain individuals to petition a court to regain the right to possess firearms so that West Virginia can become eligible for federal funding, and to authorize parents or guardians to commit children age 12 or older to mental health hospitalization without the child's consent. On second reading in the Senate tomorrow, the amendment stage, Senate Bill 211, Governor Tomlin's bill to ban texting while driving. Senate Bill 429, to expand the definition of Class A vehicles to include larger pickup-type trucks registered at more than 8,000 pounds but no more than 10,000 pounds. This change would allow these vehicles to display special license plates and allow sheriffs to renew these registrations in their offices. Senate Bill 436, to facilitate and encourage collaboration between the public school system and public higher education to promote programs of study and seamless curricula. To establish the West Virginia EDGE initiative. EDGE stands for Earn a Degree, and to require the Board of Education to offer adult basic education programs on community and technical college campuses. Senate Bill 470, requiring the physician of a member of the teacher's retirement system to show the member is mentally or physically totally incapacitated for service and that the disability is likely to be permanent. This is consistent with current practices by the Consolidated Public Retirement Board. And House Bill 4078, to extend until next year certain deadlines for mandated actions regarding higher education personnel.
Our guests tonight are the chairs of the Economic Development Committees in the House and Senate. Senator Richard Browning of Wyoming County was first elected to the House in 1988 until 1994, and again from 2000 until 2006. He was first elected to the Senate in 2008. Delegate Doug Scaff of Kanawha County was first elected to the House in 2008. This is his first session as the chair of the House Economic Development and Small Business Committee. Gentlemen, welcome. Glad you're here. We've been talking about economic development behind your back, so I'm glad you're here now to really talk to us about it.
Glad to be here. We're glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
We have peeked into the Senate Economic Development Committee from time to time since the session started, but we have unfortunately not been to yours. What have you been working on?
Well, it's a very exciting committee this year. We have a lot of things, the future with the Marcellus Shale. The first activity we saw around passing the cracker incentive plan to help attract and lure a cracker here to the state. Mm-hmm. That was what we tackled the first couple weeks. It was very important to move that swiftly through the process. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we're focused on mine safety this year. Our industry goal is so important to us, and all legislatures from all across the state have come together this year and introduced numerous pieces of legislation to help make our mines safer.
All right, very good. Delegate Browning, we have talked a lot last week about innovative technologies. These are small companies, just a few people doing major things in biotechnology and biosciences and things like that. But the problem that they tell us is venture capital, is getting investors to invest in their business.
Betsy,
what's the economic development doing about that?
Well, you're talking about Senate Bill 417, which we passed last week, and you're very correct. We've been putting a lot of dollars in technology or in research and development at our universities, the Bucks for Brains programs and so forth. And those dollars are paying off because there's a lot of research being done into new and innovative technologies. What we need to do now is take that research and move it into actual job creation, and that's where Senate Bill 417 comes in. Mm-hmm. It's so important that we have angel investors to help us with getting these businesses off the ground and keeping them going when they experience cash flows. Angel investors realize it's a risk when they invest that money, but sometimes it pays off, and it helps the state by doing that. I'm real excited about the bill, and a lot of people are too. There are a lot of agencies, different agencies around the state who are trying to work with this type funding.
Mm-hmm. Does it go to the Senate Finance Committee now after you?
It's currently in the Senate Finance Committee, and I've already talked to the chairman, and he's agreed to run things that I mm-hmm. vet out of my committee. So I'm looking forward to having that bill on the floor and sending it over to Doug and his body.
And when it gets there, how does your committee feel about investor in innovative technologies in West Virginia?
Well, that's the future of West Virginia. We've got to be innovative. We've got to be creative. We need to move forward, and so we can expand not only our workplace, but to get those workers ready for the future. And they need to have the tools necessary in place to keep us on the forefront. So I think our committee would be very supportive.
In the Senate, it is just the Economic Development Committee. In the House, it's a much longer title. What's the whole title of that committee?
We actually have numerous titles to go with this committee. It's made up of the industry, labor, economic development, small business. This committee is compiled with a good mix of backgrounds and personalities and opinions from all across the state, which makes it a very interesting committee.
Senator Browning, tomorrow in your committee, you're taking up a tax incentive program for the development of alternative technologies for management and disposal of coal slurry. Can you tell us about this?
Right now there's a ban on any further underground dumping of or pumping of underground slurry, and an idea came forth last week. Actually a bill that we kicked around last year, but I took some things out of it this year hoping to get it passed. But it basically uses a formula. A private investor has a formula that makes this slurry into a solidified form, bricks you might say, that can be placed back in the worked out coal mine so that we can get rid of the slurry that way. The water that comes out of the mine has to be treated anyway, so you're not doing any further damage to the environment by doing that.
Was this technology invented here?
It's invented in West Virginia, that's very correct.
It's made here?
It's made here.
So it's just a matter now of getting this technology into a law so that this company can go ahead and do what they say they are going to do.
What we're doing is offering tax credits with the two companies who want to do this so that it helps them out with their bottom line.
All right. Delegate Scaff, in the Senate Economic Development Committee, a lot of concern about the condition of the workforce. Substance abuse, truancy, basic skills for education. Do your committee members share that same concern?
There's been 3 or 4 bills actually introduced on the docket this year that we are currently discussing. You know, the good thing about our committee, it's made up of you have the business industry background and you have a labor personnel background on my committee, so they see best of both sides. So we have animated discussions about this. Both sides agree on those 2 things. One, we want a drug-free workplace, and number 2, we need to have our best and brightest and skilled workforce in order to compete and move forward. That's the 2 issues that we both always agree on. So there are 3 to 4 pieces of legislation, 2 to discuss a drug-free workplace. What's that mean if it comes to random testing? Does everyone get tested? How do we make our workplace drug-free? Secondly, when it comes to skilled workforce, what are some of the incentives or tools we can help put in place to make sure our employees have the proper skills as we move forward?
A tax credit for college graduates to stay in the state is a favorite of yours.
That's a bill that both of us will introduce. It's been up there before, and the problem with it does put a hit on the general fund. Not much of one, but this is strictly an incentive to keep our 2-year and 4-year college graduates in the state working in West Virginia. You know, one of the criticisms of the Promise Scholarship Program is that we lose too many of those kids after they graduate. So this is an attempt to offer them an income tax credit if they'll agree to stay and work in West Virginia once they graduate.
What kind of tax credit?
Well, it's based on their sales tax, and I think it's up to $25,000 of earnings. But again, you know, no bill ever starts out in the legislature and stays the same, you know, as it goes through the process. So we start big and hope for the best.
But the intent is there. You would like to keep college graduates.
The intent is there, and this is something that's come out of a group that Chairman Scaff has worked with many years.
Generation West Virginia.
That's right, Generation West Virginia.
Is pushing this bill.
Senator Richard Browning and Delegate Doug Scaff, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Glad to be here.
And here's a look at some of the bills introduced in the House today. Among the bills introduced in the House today, House Bill 4394 to study seismic activity associated with horizontal well drilling and waste injection sites and to develop guidelines for monitoring it. House Bill 4396 to permit a $50,000 death benefit to the families of law enforcement officers who die while performing their duties. The bill adds these officers to firefighters and EMS personnel who already qualify for survivor benefits. House Bill 4397 to make it a crime to interfere with or prevent a person from calling 911. House Bill 4405
to authorize an increase in compensation of elected county officials and county commissioners, and House Bill 4406 to allow county commissions broad discretion in setting the salaries of county elected officials. Up for passage in the House tomorrow, House Bill 4239 adds 2 members to the West Virginia Board of Osteopathy. House Bill 4257 to provide late voter registration opportunities to individuals covered by the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Act of 1986 for a period up to but not to include Election Day. House Bill 4314 to require that when a vacancy occurs in the office of magistrate, a person of the same political party as the former office holder shall be appointed. And House Bill 4320 to authorize the Secretary of the Department of Environmental Protection to propose legislative rules to settle violations of the Hazardous Waste Management Act by consent agreements as an alternative to instituting a civil action in the circuit courts of the state.
And this has been the Legislature Today. Tomorrow, we'll talk about labor issues at this session with Kenny Perdue, the president of the West Virginia AFL-CIO. I'm Beth Voorhees. Thank you for joining us. Good night.